waiting for the heat to turn off. There's a vent right above my microphone. Whew. Time for a follow-up. Hello there. It's been a minute. It's actually been a year. Last year I made a video of Nikon's 2019 lineup, and by popular demand, I'm going to follow up with the 2020 lineup and my suggestions for which Nikon you should buy in 2020 and 2021. In my previous video from 2019, I went through the 3000, 5000, and 7000 series. I'm not going to go that much in depth in this video. I'm actually going to link that below, so if you would like to see the 3000, 5000, 7000 evaluations, that is in a previous video. In this video, I'm going to focus more on their alternatives. So Nikon still makes all of these DSLRs, but I would have a hard time suggesting buying a Nikon 3000 or 5000 series camera in 2020. And that's because Nikon is moving into a mirrorless camera future. Now, before you think I've completely written off DSLRs in favor of mirrorless, that's actually not true. I actually just purchased, personally, a D850. That's Nikon's behemoth DSLR kind of endgame camera, and I'm looking forward to using it. Nikon recently introduced the Nikon Z50, which is their foray into consumer-level mirrorless cameras. If you're going to buy a Nikon in 2020 or 2021, I would highly suggest looking at the Nikon Z50. This pretty much replaces and makes obsolete the Nikon D5000 series and D7000 series. Especially if you don't have any money invested in Nikon's lens system, you can jump right on the new Nikon Z mount system, which is their mirrorless lens system. If you're already invested in Nikon's lens system, like I am, well, that might take a little bit more consideration. Nikon is still very much invested in the DSLR game. Their flagship camera, the D6, I would have a hard time suggesting the D6 over a D850 because at this point, if you look at their specs, the D850 is actually probably a better all-around camera. Okay, all of that noise and history aside, which cameras should you really look at if you're considering buying a Nikon camera in 2020? And the answer is there's probably 3 or 4. The Nikon Z6 and Z7 have both been out for almost a year now. They're both very solid entries into the mirrorless market from Nikon, and they do hold their weight against the Sony competitors, which have largely been considered the bar for mirrorless cameras. As I mentioned, Nikon also introduced the Z50, which I again would suggest that you look at before you even consider looking at the Nikon D5000 or D7000. The Z50 is going to be a better alternative for the all-around photographer. It's going to have a lot of features I think that people who are used to taking pictures on their smartphones are more accustomed to. In the year 2020, most people already have a really, really good phone in their pocket, which is their smartphone, their iPhone, their Samsung. If you're going to look at a camera that is not attached to your phone, you're probably willing to spend a little bit more money, which is why the Nikon Z50 is a very good suggestion. Nikon did something very interesting a few months back. They introduced the Nikon D780. It's interesting because this is a brand new DSLR camera, yet Nikon also has the Z6 and the Z7. So the fact that they introduced the D780 in conjunction with the other two cameras being available, almost to me seems like Nikon had a roadmap for a long time, and they were determined to stick to this roadmap with DSLRs. To me, the D780 is a hard camera to suggest, especially when the D810 and D850 exist, and exist online with a resale value of $2,000 or less. So if you're willing to spend that much money, I would highly suggest looking at a used or new D810 and D850 instead of the D780. So now that we've eliminated the D780, there's pretty much, again, 3 Nikon cameras to look at, the Z6, Z7, and D850. As I mentioned at the start of this video, I recently purchased a D850. Why did I do that over purchasing a Z7? That's because I wanted it for the focus and the autofocus features that it has. The Nikon Z7 is not quite at the level that the DSLRs are at in terms of autofocus. Personally, I've recently taken a lot of photos of surfing, outdoor action photography, so that autofocus from the D850 is very important to me. Additionally, I do a lot of traveling, so the battery life that you get from the D850 is still very important to me. Ultimately, between the Z6, the Z7, and the D850, you really can't go wrong with any of these cameras. I would personally probably eliminate the Z6 from my options. I would buck up and spend a few more dollars and go to the Z7. Again, they have the same body, the same construction. Both are going to be very professional cameras in terms of their construction, their body, and their resilience to wear and tear and weather. In summary, if you're going to buy a Nikon in the year 2020, I would highly suggest looking at the Z50, the Z7, or the D850. Depending on your budget and overall investment in Nikon's lens system, it's going to be a clear contender if you should jump into the new Z mount system or the existing F mount system. If you don't have any investment in the F mount system, I would highly suggest looking at the Z7 or the Z50. I hope this follow-up was informative. Look forward to talking to you guys in the next video.